Imagine watching a race, right? And half the runners are just moving effortlessly through the air.
Yeah, like they're just gliding along.
Exactly. But the other half are dragging themselves waist deep in mud. Have you ever wondered why some people just seem to naturally thrive like that?
Oh, absolutely. We see it all the time.
Right. Expanding their lives with this undeniable momentum, while others who are, just as intelligent, just as capable, they just remain completely stuck.
And we usually assume the ones in the air just have better genes, right?
Yeah.
Or some secret drive.
Yeah, or a more privileged history.
Yeah.
But the source material we are exploring in today's deep dive claims you aren't stuck in the mud because of your childhood.
No, not at all.
It has nothing to do with your innate potential, actually. Whether you are stuck or thriving comes down to something the author calls your life structure.
Which is a radically different way of looking at personal evolution. I mean, we tend to view our lives through a psychological lens, or a historical one.
Right.
But this text asks us to look at our lives through a structural and environmental lens.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission for you today is to really explore this profound intersection.
The exact place where our physical environment, our personal consciousness, and the concept of love all collide.
It's fascinating. We are decoding excerpts from a 2006 philosophical and spiritual text titled Transcendence and Resurrection Through the Alchemy of Love.
Written by Diaform Buddha.
Yes, and translated and edited by Kinyu. Our goal today is to extract the core framework this text proposes for elevating our minds.
Giving you, the listener, a sort of shortcut to understanding a very systematic blueprint for evolution.
Exactly. Because spiritual texts can sometimes feel, well, pretty dense.
Oh, definitely. They can be very abstract.
But we promise this one is packed with incredibly grounded real-world analogies. There is no floating around in the abstract here.
No. We're looking at things like the chemistry of vinegar, the formation of coal, even the economics of nation-states, just to understand the human soul.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the absolute foundational rule the author establishes before we even get to the idea of transcendence.
Right, the prerequisites.
Yes, the physical prerequisites for transformation.
Yeah.
The author builds this argument by pointing out that absolutely nothing in the entire universe transforms in a vacuum.
Everything requires highly specific conditions. That is the core principle here. Transformation is fundamentally conditional.
And the author lists out these natural phenomena to prove the point, focusing heavily on causality.
Yeah, like seeds only germinate if they are immersed in soil.
Right.
Eggs only hatch if they are kept at a very specific sustained temperature. Vinegar only turns sour through a very precise fermentation process.
The list just goes on, and it honestly reads like a physics textbook applied to spirituality.
It really does.
Like, particles only generate energy when they collide. Thunder and lightning resonate because of cloud collisions.
Coal and oil are only formed under massive, sustained high temperature and pressure underground.
Tsunamis only happen due to crustal movements. It's all cause and effect.
The overarching theme is that the raw material is irrelevant if the environment is missing. As the text explicitly argues, without suitable conditions, raw iron cannot become steel.
Wow, yeah.
You could have a mountain of raw iron with all the potential in the world, but if you do not apply the furnace heat, it remains iron forever.
And the author applies this exact same strict causality to human achievement.
Right, moving from nature to humans.
An artist carving a masterpiece out of an ordinary tree root, a gardener shaping wild grass into a classical sculpture, scientists sending humans into space. None of this just spontaneously happens.
It requires the deliberate application of conditions.
But the text makes a vital distinction about where these conditions come from, right?
Yes, these optimal environments, the heat for the steel, the skill for the carving, they are not pre-existing in nature just waiting for us to stumble upon them.
Okay, so where do they come from?
The author argues that conditions are created by wisdom.
Wisdom. Okay, so think of it like this. If I am trying to bake a cake, I can have the finest flour and the most expensive vanilla beans sitting right on the counter.
The best raw materials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But without the oven, nothing transforms. I just have a bowl of wet ingredients. The oven is the condition.
That's a perfect analogy.
But wait, I want to push back a little on how this applies to human beings.
Sure, go ahead.
Because the text says unhappy environments are literally created by unhappy individuals.
It does say that, yeah.
It uses the example of a country bumpkin moving to a big city and visibly changing, Or an ordinary girl developing elegance after 4 years immersed in the arts.
Right, showing how the environment shapes the person.
But does this mean we are just sponges? Like, if someone is currently stuck in a highly stressful, unhappy environment, is the author saying they are doomed to absorb that misery unless they physically escape? Is it entirely the environment, or does individual play a role?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is pointing to a feedback loop, but it is not a passive one.
Okay.
This is exactly where the concept of wisdom operates. The text states that to achieve freedom, joy, and happiness, a person must first possess the consciousness of freedom, joy, and happiness internally.
Wait, really? So the internal state comes first?
Exactly. Your internal state acts as a magnet. Once you possess that internal consciousness, you then actively seek out, or literally create, the external environment that fosters it. It's an active, wisdom-driven creation, not just passive absorption.
So you don't just wait for the oven to appear. You build the oven because your internal wisdom knows you need to bake.
You build it or you find it. But the internal blueprint has to exist first.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you are deeply unhappy internally, you will unconsciously construct or remain in an unhappy environment because it matches your structural frequency.
So if the external environment is the oven we build, then what exactly is the blueprint we are working from?
Right, what's the recipe?
Yeah. The text makes a massive shift here from the external world to the internal mechanics of the self. The author introduces this concept of the non-material structure.
The author posits that the core of any life, the actual essence that dictates the quality of your existence, is this non-material structure.
And to explain how this non-material structure works, the author uses an analogy that I found completely unexpected for a spiritual text.
Oh, the geopolitical one.
Yes, they use a macroeconomic national management analogy. The text compares the economic development of the United States, China, and Zimbabwe to explain the human soul.
It is a striking comparison because it really removes the mysticism from spiritual growth.
It totally does.
The text observes the varying levels of economic development and prosperity between these three nations, and the author asserts that these differences are not caused by the innate quality of the people living there, nor are they simply an accident of history.
Which is a bold claim.
It is. The author claims the difference is strictly caused by the management structures of these countries, which are rooted in their respective cultures. We have to present this neutrally as the author's specific philosophical claim, of course.
Right, absolutely. But the idea is that a nation might have incredible natural resources, but if its management structure, its laws, its economic policies, its internal governance is flawed, it cannot become a highly developed country.
It cannot thrive.
And the author draws a direct one-to-one parallel from that to the individual listener. Imagine your own mind as a corporation. What is your internal management structure?
Just as Zimbabwe would need to fundamentally improve its national management structure to become a developed, prosperous country, the text argues that a mortal human being who wants to ascend to a higher plane of existence must radically improve their own internal life structure.
Think about the implications of that for a second. The text talks about ascending to realms like the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world.
Which are the author's terms for much higher, more advanced planes of organized consciousness.
Right. And getting there isn't about being struck by a lightning bolt of divine enlightenment. It is treated almost like an organizational restructuring rather than a magical occurrence.
Yes, treating spiritual ascension as a structural management issue changes everything. It means ascension is systematic.
Which is very demystifying.
Exactly. And the text reveals what this internal structure is actually made of. Just as a nation's management structure is built out of its laws and culture, our non-material structure is composed entirely of consciousness.
Okay, so if consciousness is the legal framework or the operating system of our lives, what programming language is it written in?
That's the big question.
What is the actual concrete we should be pouring into this non-material foundation? The text gives a definitive, single-word answer, but it defines it in a very specific way. That word is love.
The text states unequivocally that the core component of advanced life consciousness is love.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When we talk about love in the secular world, we are almost always talking about a fleeting emotion.
A romantic feeling, a warm, fuzzy sensation, a chemical rush.
Exactly. But the author strips all of that away. The text treats love almost like a quantifiable metric or raw building material, rather than just a feeling.
It is presented as a structural rule of the universe, the specific gravity of your soul, essentially.
Specific gravity, I love that.
The text outlines a mathematical proportion. The higher the life form, the higher the content of love in its consciousness. Conversely, the lower the life form, the lower the content of love.
The content of love. Like measuring the carbon content in a piece of steel.
Exactly like that.
And to prove this isn't just an abstract philosophical idea, the author issues a real-world test for the reader. They challenge you to go out and survey the people around you. Look at a deeply unhappy family, and then look at a genuinely happy family.
And the conclusion?
The text guarantees your conclusion will be uniform. The members of the unhappy family lack love, while the members of the happy family are filled with it.
It's very practical.
But I need to ask you, how does one actually measure this content of love in daily life? Especially when the secular world is so chaotic, bills are due, and the world can be objectively harsh.
What's fascinating here is how the text bridges the abstract and the practical. We have to look at why love functions as this specific gravity.
Okay, tell me more.
In this framework, love is an attractive, cohesive force. Think of it like the strong nuclear force that holds atoms together. When consciousness is filled with love, it becomes structurally sound, integrated, and capable of holding more complexity.
I see.
When a family or an individual lacks love, their structure is fragmented. They are operating defensively, driven by fear or selfishness, which are dispersive forces. They literally cannot hold a higher level of reality together.
Wow, so love isn't just a feeling here, it's the specific gravity that determines what level of reality you inhabit.
Exactly that. If you want to ascend to those higher realms the author mentioned, you need a structure dense enough with love to survive the atmosphere there.
Which brings up a massive logistical problem.
Oh.
If we need to practice building our structural consciousness with love, where do we actually do that? We already established in the very first section that raw iron cannot become steel without the heat of a furnace. You need the environment.
Well, you need the conditions.
So where is the furnace for love?
The text concludes by introducing a highly specific methodology and an exclusive dedicated community designed entirely for this purpose. It is called Life Genuine.
Life Genuine. The author describes it as a paradise of love, an ocean of love.
It is presented as the optimal designated place for achieving the state of a celestial being.
And referring back to that rule of conditions, Life Genuine is engineered to provide two very specific environmental requirements.
Yes. The first condition is the presence of a guide.
Like the author.
Right. The author positions themselves in this role, stating that they lead by word and action.
And the second.
The second condition is the atmosphere. This is crucial. The atmosphere is not some mystical aura. It is actively generated by the collective ongoing efforts of the community members, whom the text refers to as genuine celestials.
The author issues a stark, almost frightening warning about what happens if you try to achieve this transformation without these two conditions.
They use a really powerful natural metaphor here.
Yeah, they say you could be a swan egg or the seed of a towering tree. You could possess immense world-changing potential.
But without the suitable temperature and the fertile soil provided by that specific collective community.
That swan egg will just dry out under the sun. It will die in its shell.
This raises an important question. If you look at the secular world, how many people with immense potential fail simply because they lack the collective temperature of a genuinely supportive environment?
That's the great point. How many towering trees never grew because they didn't have the soil?
The text argues that individual potential is entirely insufficient on its own. You need the collective heat.
The text does concede that you can try to practice this love in your daily secular life, like at your regular job, your normal studies.
It does, but it points out a brutal reality.
Right. The secular world generally lacks an environment of love. Because love is scarce out there, practicing it is like swimming upstream in a rapid.
Exactly. That is why practicing within the intentionally constructed environment of Life Genuine is described as yielding twice the result with half the effort.
But there is a crucial philosophical point to this practice that completely upends how we normally think about building a community or achieving a goal.
Yes, the part about the results.
Right. The author explicitly states that while you must participate in the process of building Life Genuine to practice love, they do not care about the results of the construction.
Our modern society is hyper-focused on outcomes. Did you finish the building? Did you hit the metric?
So what does this all mean? The author argues that the tangible outcome is almost irrelevant.
The text literally says, without the process, there will be no result. Practicing love lies entirely in the process, not the result.
Let me use an analogy to make sure we are grasping the mechanism here. It's kind of like going to the gym.
Okay, we're listening.
Imagine you are lifting weights every day to build a stronger body. The physical, external gym building itself doesn't really matter. What matters are the reps you do inside it. Or, to use a different one, imagine carrying heavy stones up a mountain to build a magnificent temple. For years, you carry these stones, sweating, working alongside others, and then right before it is finished, an earthquake destroys the temple.
A total collapse.
The secular world would look at that and say, what a tragedy, all that work yielded no result. But the author's framework says the building was never the point.
The point was that carrying those stones every single day fundamentally changed your musculature. You became stronger.
Exactly. The act of carrying the stones is the alchemy. The daily process of acting with love, of cooperating to build this community, mathematically alters the non-material structure of your consciousness.
The external temple falling down doesn't undo the internal upgrade you achieved through the effort.
The process alters your internal specific gravity. That is the mechanism.
And that leads to a beautiful piece of meta-context at the very end of the source material.
Oh, yes. The reason we are even reading this.
Right. We have to look at why we even have access to this document. The author includes a note stating that this advanced practice was originally kept completely secret.
It was not meant for the general public, so why are we discussing it?
The author reveals that an exception was made to illuminate lost practitioners, specifically inspired by the arrival of three sisters at Life Genuine.
Kongsin, Konglong, and Alien.
Exactly. The author saw their arrival as such a profound, genuine manifestation of love that it demanded a response. As a gesture of gratitude, this previously hidden framework was published.
The text is explicitly dedicated to the Konglong sisters and their parents. It frames the entire philosophical text not as a rigid academic lecture, but as a reciprocal gift.
The author felt the love of these sisters, and in response, utilized their wisdom to create a new external condition, this very text, so that others might have the environment they need to transform.
It perfectly models the theory it presents. Wisdom creates the condition. Love is the material.
So true.
So let's distill this deep dive down for you listening. What have we uncovered in this blueprint?
First, transformational change in your life is not random, and it is not based solely on your potential. It requires intentional, specific external conditions.
Right. Second, the quality of your life is strictly dictated by your internal management structure, which is your consciousness.
Third, the most advanced, highest grade material you can use to upgrade that internal structure is the specific gravity of love.
And finally, true cultivation happens entirely in the process of building a supportive community. Because the daily reps are what change your internal structure, completely independent of the end result.
It really asks us to stop worrying about the final architectural design of our lives and start focusing intensely on the quality of the bricks we are laying today.
I love that. So we want to invite you, the listener, to do a quick structural audit of your own life today.
A structural audit, yeah.
Look closely at your environment. Are you currently sitting in an unhappy environment that is quietly being shaped by unhappy consciousness? Perhaps even your own internal management policies.
And when it comes to love, are you treating it as a fleeting emotional reaction to a good day? Or are you actively utilizing it as the foundational load-bearing structure of your daily interactions?
Because we have to realize that we are either the raw iron, sitting cold in the dark,
Or we are the ones actively generating the heat.
which leaves us with one final, lingering question for you to mull over as you go about your day.
The provocative thought.
Yes. If our internal consciousness dictates our external environment, and if the daily process of acting with love mathematically alters your non-material structure while making the tangible results of your actions irrelevant,
Then what happens next?
how might shifting your focus entirely away from your end goals and focusing strictly on the alchemy of your daily interactions fundamentally rewire your reality by tomorrow morning? Are you just a seed waiting around for the right soil, or are you finally ready to start creating the conditions to grow?